Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is John Mancini. I'm the host of my OxyMoron show, and today's oxymoron is hopefully with an emphasis on both words, not just the latter part. Is my friend Glenn Gibson, and Glenn, welcome. Good to have you here.
I'm delighted to be here, John. Thank you so much, and thank you for balancing out the word of the moron part.
So the idea of this show, for people that haven't been here before, is to talk a little bit about this question of people, process, and technology. And one of the things that occurred to me when I was first thinking about this is that I've been doing this technology stuff like you have, Glenn, for a long time, and we say, we kind of give lip service to the idea of, oh yes, projects are 80% people and 15% process and 5% technology, and yet we act exactly the opposite of that. And we spend all this time with those elaborate stack diagrams with technology all on top of each other, and we really neglect the people that are doing amazing things. And so the thought behind it was, okay, let me talk to some of these folks and see what's up with them. And it struck me that they have a unique combination of skills, which is why I call this oxymorons, because they're kind of conflicting skills. They're the ability to think strategically, but also implement tactically, the ability to make things done. You can call these people practical dreamers. You can call them visionary pragmatists. Oxymorons is kind of a good term. And so that was the idea behind the show. So Glenn is here. And actually, Glenn, you kind of have like maybe two hats on a little bit. One is that you're an oxymoron in the context of the work that you do with Highland. But the thing that I specifically want to talk to you about is the fact that you wrote a book.
I did.
So before we get started, and this is what it looks like, everybody, you should buy this book. It's really good. I actually got to read it before it was even published. But just tell people what the book's about, and then we'll talk a little bit about the creative process associated with the book.
Awesome. Yeah, so my book is called, I'll hold it up too, just for posterity. It's called Before the Mic. And this book is focused on presentations as a discipline, but on everything that has to happen before you actually speak. And that was actually the driver and kind of where my head went when this whole idea started percolating, is that so many books out there on presentation skills cover the entire gambit. And usually the area that people are most focused on and nervous about is the actual holding the mic and talking part. But over time in my role at Highland and kind of some of my side gig I've done at Highland as well, has been really writing presentations for myself and for others. And over time, developed a whole process for how to actually approach taking a topic that sometimes I've know like nothing or very little about, and helping someone carve it into a compelling, meaningful presentation. So this idea, I actually started looking for a book out there that would kind of focus on the writing process. I couldn't really find one. And I thought, well, I'll just write it myself. So that's what the whole book is about. Presentations, but everything before the mic.
And I think the part that I really like about it, Glenn, and it's actually a reflection maybe of what I'd like to do in some measure with this show, is I think you really put there's so much emphasis on the tricks and on the toolkit associated with presentations, and so little emphasis on the storytelling. And I've always thought that this is ultimately about stories, and you want to get the story down before you start, doing all those freaking PowerPoints and everything else.
Yeah.
So, and that's really at the heart of the book, and I really enjoy it, and I applaud you for it. So, so let's talk before we hop into that. Let's let people get a little bit familiar with Glenn the person. So, so 3 questions to start this off, and for folks out in the audience, you can join the conversation and join the event by just posting a comment on whatever platform you are live streaming on. And with a little bit of luck, it'll show up on our screen and we can post it to the show. So first question is your favorite COVID TV binge watch?
Good question. So I want to say like The Mandalorian, but I don't know if you can say that you've binged something as you've been watching it as episodes have been released. So I'm not going to say that. I will say our kids we've got two boys, they're 11 and 13, and we dusted off Malcolm in the Middle and watched every season.
Oh, that's a good show.
And it was really, really fun to do that. Our kids absolutely loved it. They managed to kind of keep that entertaining for all those seasons. So that was our binge adventure.
And isn't the main guy on there? That's the guy from Breaking Bad, isn't it?
All right, yeah.
So I forgot about that show. That was a good one. I enjoyed
that.
To
be a bit older before we get into Breaking Bad.
Yeah, when you said Mandalorian, I was thinking, oh my gosh, there's a trend here that we can capitalize on with OxyMorons, because last week Mark Patrick said that Mandalorian was their binge thing. So, anyway, okay. Somebody sneaks in and looks at your Spotify playlist, and what is the most surprising song they will find on the playlist?
So you probably don't take me for a metal head, which I wouldn't proclaim that I am a metal head. However, there is a band from Birmingham, England called Magnum, which I believe are one of the most underrated, shockingly underrepresented bands for that have ever emerged. They should have been up at the likes of AC/DC and Rush, etc. in my opinion. So I've got vinyl behind me. I've got my little vinyl set up. I have been reclaiming my.
Well, it looks like we have a little bit.
Yeah, there's a song from them that is my favorite song by them. It's called Le Mort d'Enceinte, which is French for the what is it? The Dance of the Dead, I think it's called, or something like that. My French is obviously rusty, but anyway, so a bit of Magnum is probably my most surprising one. And out of all their whole back catalog, that's the one song my wife likes too. So I've been playing that a lot.
All right, favorite book over the last 12 months?
So also music related. So I'm a big Rush fan. I just mentioned Rush. So there is a book called 2113, inspired by their concept album 2112. This book 2113 is a compilation of short stories that have been inspired by, or two of them actually inspired, Rush songs. So it's this authors either were inspired or songs that Neil Peart had heard and wrote songs based on them, compiled in. So I have a playlist that I made with every song in the book, and I've been listening to that and reading the short story that goes along with it. That has been a very fun read.
Terrific. So just a reminder, folks can join the show by posting a comment, and we'd love to hear from you. If you want to post a question for Glenn along the way, feel free to do that as well. So let me start off, and we touched on this a little bit to start with, Glenn, but where did the idea for the book come from? Just go through that a little bit again.
Yeah, so it really comes from an absolute love of the discipline and the art and science of presenting. And so often I would watch others present, and I would be inspired and hear things that they had done that were like techniques that could really be applied across any presentation. And I've spent a lot of time over the last 15, 20 years coaching people on presenting as well. So over time, this picture of really how to structure out any topic kind of started to form in my mind. And as I would work with people and help people, people would come to me, hey, can you help me work on this? I found myself repeating a lot of the same concepts and ideas. And as I mentioned earlier, I went looking to say, like, is there a book I could recommend to people to help them understand like the fundamental structures, the writing process, and all that kind of stuff. And there was a lot of good ideas and a lot of good books, but I couldn't find that one book that I would say, read this and then we'll talk type of thing. So that's where the idea really came from. I thought, well, let's take a swing and let's write this whole thing myself. So
you had this idea in your head. You're thinking like, hell, this is a terrific idea. There's a market for this thing. Did you validate it? Did you, how would you go about that? Or did you? Sometimes people just say like, the heck with it, full speed ahead. What did you do?
Yeah. Well, so this is a great point. So I have done a lot of teaching of presentation skills too. And that's where the enthusiasm and the drive came to put this down on paper, because I've stood in front of people of all walks of life, from brand new employees to seasoned, hardened executives, board members, and taught some of these principles. And you can see the light bulb go on in people's eyes, because here's one of the things that I've realized, and this is perhaps an oxymoron or a dichotomy itself, is
or both.
or both. People talk about the fact that the fear of presenting, right? There's a very famous Jerry Seinfeld quote out there that a lot of people talk about, that people are more afraid of presenting than they are of death. So that, you know, at a funeral, you're better off in the casket than giving the eulogy type of thing, right? So this is a well-worn kind of presentation joke. However, there is a oxymoron or a dichotomy in there where people are genuinely afraid of this. It's a true fear. There's phobias about it. There's a lot of articles about overcoming fear of public speaking, even on, you know, the Mayo Clinic's website, for example. And it's such a necessary skill, both for people and whole organizations, to be able to succeed. But there's a huge gap in there. Like, people know it's something people are afraid of, but organizations typically don't really spend a lot of time investing, giving the training, even giving the time it takes to work on presentations and you know, improving that skill set, and even actually preparing a presentation itself. So that's kind of that idea of sharing some of these tools, getting the validation from people live. I've even had people say, hey, I'm a Toastmasters expert. I'm coming to your class because I'm going to sit there and kind of judge everything you're saying. People have genuinely turned up to the class who have said that to me, to say, I came expecting to kind of roll my eyes at your ideas, and they've said it, and I learned something, and thank you. So with all those little kind of touch points, and realizing that this is a need out there, and it shouldn't be a secret for how to deliver a great presentation. I felt so passionate about it. So the validation kind of came from seeing those, you know, the light bulbs go on in people's eyes from all different walks of life. And to your point about this whole series, people are people. Whether you're presenting to an analyst, a board member, or a set of new employees, or even at a conference, people still need to be engaged in a specific way that is going to help them understand why it's important. So anyway, a long answer, but yes, validated in the classroom. It was a big kind of deep breath, though. Would this translate into words on a page?
Yeah, I know what you mean about the validation process, because I think, as you know, I have this book project of my own, and I've been and it's of a little bit more of a personal nature kind of thing. But I've got 50,000 words written, and for a long time, the 50,000 words were 50,000 words that I was the only one that knew what the 50,000 words were. And so gradually over time, you start to, you know, kind of drip it out to people, test it out with people, you know, do you think this is, you know, has any worth to it? And I still haven't quite figured out exactly what to do with it. So I'm very envious of the fact that you've kind of gotten all the way to here already. But I know what you mean about that validation process. It's tricky because you don't want to be dissuaded from what you're doing.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it kind of, I think, builds confidence over time in pursuing the idea that you had in the first place.
Yeah, and that was an important part of the process too. So you were one of the people I'd reached out to. Hey, would you like to swing at this and read this manuscript? And I sent it to a few others too. And and again, even at that was like a nerve-wracking moment, because you're wondering, like, is this thing even any good?
Yeah.
And the reviews and the comments that came back, I was trying to like look for comments that were just, you know, nice because they knew me, or like actually like genuine comments about the book itself. And I felt like there was enough critical mass there that it was really, really encouraging. So I thank you for that too, because that was a really important part of the process.
The part I will never be able to do if my book is ever published that you did in yours is that I remember you saying that you drew the little pictures in it too. Yeah. I can confidently say that there is no way that I will be doing that in moving forward. So okay, so you have an idea, you validate it with some folks, and then inevitably there are roadblocks along the way. So what you know, was there anybody or anyone or anything that was particularly frustrating that kind of pissed you off as you kind of got into this thing?
Yeah, no person, probably just besides myself. I kind of learned a lot about myself and a lot about the whole writing process over the last, year and a half when I was really getting serious about doing this. One of the things that I learned kind of quite quickly when my wife actually booked a cabin for me to go away, which again, I think might have been, a present to herself as much as it was to me. But for a couple of those days there, I started getting really frustrated with myself because I had in mind that I would be churning out, writing the great American novel with like pages flying out the proverbial typewriter. But a lot of the time was just sitting thinking and gathering and planning and chewing over ideas. And I would get frustrated. I would call my wife and be, I haven't accomplished anything. I've only written half a page today, or I'm stuck or whatever. And I kept kind of like, that kept being there. And my wife was brilliant kind of coach along the way. And she was saying, look, it's going to take as long as it's going to take. So any time you spend working on it is time that is invested in this project, whether that results in, words on the page or whether it's just ideas formulating, etc. Mm-hmm. And that stuck with me the whole way through. It helped me kind of get over myself as a roadblock, which was it's just going to take as long as it's going to take. So just make peace with it and just make sure that that time is spent, whether, anything tangible comes out of it, but just kind of keep working at it. So that was, I definitely reached points where I would feel stuck, not sure what to do, but then just kind of keep going and honor the process, I think.
Yeah, talking about your wife sending you off to write, and it always creates in my head that vision from The Shining. I don't know if you remember that, where Jack Nicholson is working on the great American novel, and then his wife comes, Shelley Duvall comes in at some point, and there's hundreds of pages that say all work and no play make Jack a dull boy, over and over and over and over again. So I'm glad that didn't turn out to be the case in the cabin.
Me too. I definitely felt on the verge of insanity at points, but I managed to pull myself back.
So tell me a little bit. You kind of alluded to it a second ago, but did you worry about failing in this? Did you worry that people would say like, you're crazy. What's this about?
I did think that, and I mentioned this, I think, to you before too, is that one of the things that I kept stumbling into is as I would look over, the books out there, because you have to do a lot of competitive research as well for other books and titles and cover design and all that kind of stuff. And I kept thinking to myself, there are so many presentation books out there. Why am I even writing another one type of thing? Because there's loads out there. But my wife to the rescue, she gave me another piece of advice. She said, just because there are cookbooks in existence doesn't mean that a chef should not write another one. And you've got a recipe here that you're sharing, so go ahead and do it. So that was good. And then I think the other thing I was really thinking through is determining where the line of success is helps you understand where you would deem something a success or a failure. So for me, the line of success was really seeing this book in print and come to life. And for me, I'm like, if I can get here and get this to something that I am proud of, then it is successful.
Yep.
Anything that happens beyond that is going to be a bonus type of thing. It'd be wonderful for people to read it and benefit from it and get further feedback. But I set the bar of success at publishing something that I would be forever proud of, and I've accomplished that. So anything from here on and as an additional bonus is how I looked at this whole project.
So I know what you're saying, and I probably lied to you a little bit and said that I have this book project that hasn't been published yet, kind of assuming that that's the only book project that I've ever had. So hold on a minute.
Here we go.
So if you think about this from the perspective of the finished product, is everything else is gravy. So I did this 20 years ago for my kids. Nice. And it's probably, you can tell by the picture on the back. Oh, good Lord, look at that picture there. And so the idea was I had written these stories for them, and I thought, okay, I'm going to try to get this into some sort of form so it will be preserved, at some point moving forward. And I think we've probably sold upwards of 100 copies over the years, but I really don't care. It was the kids still talk about that damn book, and my granddaughter was reading the book this year, so that we kind of went along the way. So anyway, I know what you mean in terms of the pride that you must have for this, and it's well founded. So I give you a lot of credit.
Thank you.
So you went from a vague wish from a book to an actual book. What was, is there any kind of specific secret sauce that you thought along the way that helped you get there?
So I think alluded to it earlier. It's a little bit like making bread. You just have to respect the process. Some ideas just take time to formulate and, kind of take that long-term view. You cannot rush the process. And if I was going to go back in time and give myself advice, it would be really to make sure that you're keeping the momentum going, because, and I made it a goal to just do something, even if it was just something really small every day while I was going through that process. And sometimes that would be off an evening and I would have an opportunity to jam out some new ideas. Sometimes it was just a matter of like finalizing a sketch or changing one of the drawings or something like that. But just do something every day to keep the momentum going, because that is why the book exists today. If I hadn't done that, I would have ended up, it would still be an idea at this stage. And again, aligned with that, you've got to be, I was saying this to you before we started, at every turn, I've been learning new things. I've been learning things about the publishing industry. I've been learning things about websites. I've been learning things all over there. But all of that time is valuable time spent. So on one hand, the whole hour spent looking for the publisher to partner with, the rejection letters, all the kind of the process that you go through, it's all time that's invested in the book. And if you view it like that, rather than going down kind of like dead ends, it kind of, and just see it as all part of the process. That would be my, I don't know if it's secret sauce, but it worked because the book exists.
Well, I'd really like to thank you for being here today, Glenn, and I urge everybody, you can see the scroll on the bottom of the screen, go there and find out about the book. I imagine they probably can hire you to be a speaker too, to talk about the book, which might be kind of another side hustle along the way. So congratulations on the book, and congratulations for being what I would consider an oxymoron. And I will start the countdown to sign off. So thanks for being here, Glenn.
Thanks so much for having me, John. This was so much fun. Thank you.